Mama, you gonna rot in that place, you hear me? You dead to me now. Those were the last words my daughter Shanice said to me before abandoning me in a nursing home on my 68th birthday. And she had no idea of the secret I was carrying. A secret that would turn her life upside down in exactly 3 days. Hi, my name is Dorothy Mae Johnson, but everyone calls me Miss Dot. If you want to hear true stories of faith, overcoming adversity, and divine justice that will touch your heart, subscribe now to the Grandma's Diaries channel. Because what you'll discover at the end of this story will make you believe that God never abandons his children. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. It was a hot Tuesday in March 2024 in Tupelo, Mississippi. The morning sun streamed through the window of my little light blue wooden house. The same house that my late husband Jerome and I had bought with sweat and prayer 45 years ago. I had woken up at 5 a.m. as usual to do my devotions. I read Psalm 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? I didn't know it yet, but I would need that word a lot in the hours to come. I was 68 years old, 68 springs that the Lord allowed me to see. I spent the whole morning making my carrot cake with cream cheese frosting, Shanice's favorite since she was a little girl. I set the table with the white lace tablecloth that my grandmother embroidered back in the days of segregation. I placed the yellow roses from the garden in a glass vase that I received as a wedding gift, and I waited. I waited for my only daughter to arrive so we could celebrate together, as we always did. What I didn't expect was that Shanice would actually show up, but not to congratulate me. When her black Cadillac pulled up in front of the house at 2 p.m., I ran to the door with a full heart. But when I opened it, I saw no hug or flowers. I saw Shanice with her husband Deshaun, both with serious expressions and a black briefcase under his arm. My daughter was different, cold, with a look I had never seen in the 43 years since she was born in my arms, screaming loudly as if she already knew she was going to have to fight in this life. Mama, we need to talk, Shanice disse sem nem entrar. You ain't gonna be living in this house no more. The words cut like a razor. No hey mama, no happy birthday, nothing, just that icy declaration. Deshaun stood behind her, staring at the ground, too afraid to look at me. I felt the world stop. What are you talking about, baby? I managed to ask, though my voice was trembling. What's going on here? Shanice burst in, pushing the door aside as if I were an old piece of furniture in her path. She opened the black folder right on the table where I had arranged everything for my birthday. She tossed the papers onto Grandma's tablecloth and the flowers I had picked with so much care. We made a decision, Ela continuou com voz mecânica. You getting old, forgetting stuff. Last week you left the stove on. You fell in the bathroom. You can't keep living by yourself no more. My mind raced, trying to remember those accidents she was talking about. The stove being left on never happened. The fall in the bathroom never happened. They were lies. Well-crafted lies to justify something I didn't quite understand yet, but that was beginning to take shape in my heart. Shanice, I ain't left no stove on, and I ain't fell nowhere. Falei, sentindo a angústia subir. What's this really about, child? Mama, don't argue with me. Ela cortou com gesto impaciente. It's already decided. We putting you in Pinewood Care Home. It's clean, got nurses 24/7. You'll be better off there. I looked at the papers scattered on my desk. Admission forms, medical authorizations, legal documents. Everything was ready. Everything was decided without anyone asking me anything. It was my birthday, and my own daughter had come to drag me away from my house. But baby, this is my house, protestei, lágrimas começando a cair. I lived here with your daddy. We raised you here. All my memories are in these walls. You can't just take me away from here. Mama, this house is too big for you. Shanice suspirou, como se tivesse lidando com criança teimosa. The yard needs work. The porch steps are dangerous. Bills are piling up. Best thing is for us to sell it and use that money to pay for the home and, well, other things. There it was. The truth finally came out. It wasn't about my well-being. It wasn't about my safety. It was about my home. This property in the historic center of Tupelo, now worth about $520,000. This house that Jerome and I bought for $18,000 in 1979, when it was still only black people living here and nobody cared. But over time, as the neighborhood developed, with white people starting to want to live here, the house became a small fortune. Shanice wasn't worried about me. She was worried about getting her hands on my assets. I ain't selling my house, Shanice, falei como pouco de firmeza que consegui juntar. And I ain't going to no nursing home. This here is my house, in my name, and I got every right to stay. My daughter's expression changed instantly. The mask of worry vanished, replaced by something dark, something that scared me. You ain't in no position to decide nothing, Mama, ela disse com voz gelada. The van gonna be here in 1 hour to take you. It's all arranged. 1 hour. They gave me 1 hour to say goodbye to my life, my home, everything I knew. Deshawn finalmente falou pela primeira vez. Miss Dot, we just trying to do what's best for you. You'll see, it's a nice place. Got activities, other folks your age. You won't be lonely. Lonely? Lonely? I wasn't alone. I had my church, my garden, my neighbors who came to have coffee with me every Saturday. I had Jerome's memories in every corner of this house. I had my plants, my cat whiskers, my prayer routine. They wanted to rip me away from all of this and throw me into a place full of strangers waiting to die. Please, baby, imploré, segurando no braço de Shanice. Don't do this to me. Not today. Not on my birthday. She recoiled from my touch as if I had burned her. You should have thought about that before you got old and useless, Mama. Shanice disse com uma frieza que partiu meu coração em pedaços. Now go pack your stuff. 1 bag. That's all they allow. 1 suitcase. 68 years of life reduced to a small suitcase. I climbed the stairs to my room, my legs trembling. Each step felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I looked at the photos on the wall. Jerome and I on our wedding day. Baby Shanice. Shanice at her graduation. Shanice the day she opened her first store. I had given everything for that girl. Everything. When she was a baby and I was working 3 jobs to pay the bills after Jerome died in the accident. When she wanted to go to college and I sold my jewelry to help. When she wanted to start the business and I signed as collateral for the loan. And now, on my birthday, she was throwing me away like old trash. I had 45 minutes to decide what to take with me from my entire life. I grabbed my battered Bible, the one my mother gave me when I was baptized at age 12. I put in some clothes, a picture of Jerome, the handkerchief he gave me on our first date, and lastly, something Shanice didn't know existed, an old brown folder hidden under the mattress. Inside were documents I'd kept for years hoping I'd never need them. But now, with my daughter betraying me like this, I knew the time had come. When I went downstairs with my suitcase, the white van was already parked out front. Pinewood Care Home was written on the side. 2 employees were waiting to take me. Time to go, Mama, Shanice said without looking. For me. I stopped at the living room door. I looked at the table where my birthday cake was still untouched. I looked at the furniture that Jerome and I had chosen with such care. I looked at the curtains that I had sewn myself. You're going to regret this, Shanice, I said with a calmness that surprised even myself. Mark my words, child. You're going to regret this decision for the rest of your life. She laughed. A short, bitter laugh. Mama, you ain't got nothing I need to worry about. You broke old and alone. What you gonna do? Haunt me? The employees escorted me out the door. I stepped outside my house for the last time, or at least that's what Shanice thought. Because what she didn't know, what nobody besides me and my lawyer knew, was that I had done something 15 years ago. Something that would change everything. And in 3 days, when the sealed envelope was opened, Shanice would discover that you don't mess with a woman who serves a God of justice. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who later discovered who you really were? Chapter 1. The Asylum of Despair. Pinewood Care Home was located on the outskirts of Tupelo, in an industrial area where the smell of factories mingled with medicine and disinfectant. It was a 3-story building, painted a dreary beige that seemed to have given up on being beautiful long ago. When the van pulled up, I felt my stomach churn. That place was nothing like home. It was a dumping ground for old people, a place where families discarded those who were no longer useful. Welcome to Pinewood, Mrs. Johnson, a thin, blonde nurse said with a forced smile. Her name tag read, Nurse Becky. We're going to take good care of you here. She spoke to me as if I were a 5-year-old child. Slowly, loudly, as if I were deaf or stupid. I was neither. They took me to room 203 on the 2nd floor. A small space with 2 beds, a window overlooking the parking lot, and a smell of urine poorly disguised with cheap cleaning product. There was already a woman in the bed next to mine. White, thin, with short white hair. She was asleep, or perhaps she hadn't even noticed me come in. This is your space, Nurse Becky disse apontando para metade do quarto. Meals at 7 a.m., noon, and 5 p.m. Activities in the common room at 2. Lights out at 9. Any questions? Yes. I had 1,000 questions. How could my daughter have thrown me into this mess? How could the world let this happen? How could God allow this injustice? But all that came out of my mouth was, "Can I make a phone call?" "Sure, honey. There's a payphone in the hall. But you gotta wait till after dinner. Them's the rules." Rules. This place was full of rules. Like a prison, but for old people. Nurse Becky left, leaving me alone with my suitcase and my pain. I sat on the hard bed and looked around. The walls were white and bare. There was no room for my photos, no place for my garden. There was nothing to make that place feel like home. I opened my suitcase and took out my Bible. I ran my hand over the worn cover, feeling the marks of years of use. How many times had I opened this book, seeking comfort? How many times had God spoken to me through these pages? I opened it randomly, and my eyes fell on Psalm 37:25. I was young, and now I am old, yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging bread. The word descendants hit me like a punch. Shanice, my descendants, the daughter I raised in the Lord's way, the girl I took to church every Sunday, the young woman I taught to pray before bed. And now she had abandoned me. "Are you new here?" a weak voice asked. I looked at the bed next to me. The white lady had woken up and was looking at me with watery blue eyes. "Yes, ma'am," responded. "Just got here today. I'm Ethel Patterson. Been here 2 years now." Ela disse com voz cansada. "My son put me here after his wife said I was too much trouble, said I couldn't live with them no more." 2 different stories, same pain. "I'm Dorothy Johnson. My daughter just left me here today," falei, sentindo as lágrimas voltarem. "On my birthday." Ethel balançou a cabeça devagar. "They all got their reasons, don't they? Their excuses. But at the end of the day, we just old folks nobody wants around no more." The sadness in her voice mirrored mine. We were 2 discarded mothers, 2 women who gave everything for their children and now rotted away in a place forgotten by God. Or perhaps God had forgotten. I grabbed the brown folder I had hidden at the bottom of the suitcase. I looked at Ethel, who had closed her eyes again, and then slowly opened the folder. Everything was inside. The will I made 15 years ago, the contract with the lawyer, the deeds to the house, and something else. Something Shanice had no idea existed. A second property. When Jerome died in 1998, he left me not only the house where we lived, but also a large plot of land that had belonged to his family for generations. 20 acres of good land near the Tombigbee River. At the time, it wasn't worth much. But now, with the construction of the new shopping mall and gated community in the area, that land is worth almost $2 million. Shanice knew nothing about this. I never told her. I kept it a secret for protection, in case I ever needed it. And now I needed it. The will I had made clearly stated, if Shanice ever placed me in a nursing home against my will, she would be disinherited. Everything would go to my nephew Marcus, son of my deceased brother, a good, hard-working young man who always treated me with respect. Shanice was in for a surprise, and what a surprise it was. But I needed to wait. The will would only be opened in case of death or, in this specific case, after 3 days of documented abandonment. I had instructed my lawyer, Mr. Harold Washington, a black brother from the church who was respected throughout the city. In 3 days, he was going to execute the clause. In 3 days, Shanice was going to discover that she had made the biggest mistake of her life. "Dinner time," a voice shouted from the hallway. I put the folder back in my bag and stood up. My legs ached. My heart ached even more. I followed the stream of elderly people down the hallways, all walking slowly toward the cafeteria. Wheelchairs, walkers, canes. A parade of people whom the world had decided were no longer useful. The cafeteria was a large space with communal tables and the smell of hospital food. A single-file line to get a tray. Watery mashed potatoes, tasteless chicken, wilted peas. Nothing compares to my roasted potatoes with rosemary. Nothing compares to my fried chicken seasoned with my mother's secret recipe. Nothing that reminds me of real food, made with love. I sat at an empty table in the corner. I looked around. Sad faces, empty stares, people chewing without pleasure, just going through another task of the day. Is this what my life has become? "Mind if I sit?" a gruff voice asked. I looked up. A tall black man with gray hair and thick glasses was standing there with a tray in his hand. "Please," I said, pointing to the empty chair. "I'm Robert Hayes. Ele se apresentou enquanto sentava. Folks call me Big Rob. Been here 6 months. Saw you coming in earlier." "You Miss Johnson, right?" "Yes, sir, Dorothy Johnson. But folks call me Miss Dot." "Well, Miss Dot, welcome to Pinewood." Big Rob disse com sorriso triste. "It ain't the Ritz, but we make do." "How did you end up here?" I asked, curious. "Heart attack," Ele explicou. "Had one last year. My kids decided I couldn't live alone no more. Put me here for my own good." Ele fez aspas com os dedos. "Truth is, they wanted my house. Sold it soon as they signed me in here." My God. A story just like mine. My daughter did the same. compartilhei, brought me here today, on my birthday, said I was too old to take care of myself. They all say that, don't they? Big Rob balançou a cabeça. Too old, too forgetful, too much trouble. When the truth is, we just got something they want. Exactly. But you know what, Miss Dot? Ellie continuou, se inclinando mais perto. The Lord works in mysterious ways. My kids thought they were getting my house. What they don't know is I got a life insurance policy worth $800,000. And guess what? I changed the beneficiary last month, gave everything to my church. They gonna be shocked when I die and find out they got nothing but that house they already sold. I smiled for the first time in hours. You're a smart man, Big Rob. Nah, I just serve a God of justice, ele disse com brilho nos olhos. He don't let the wicked prosper forever. Their time coming, and yours too, Miss Dot. Whatever your daughter did, God gonna make it right. You just gotta trust his timing. Those words entered my heart like balm. I wasn't alone. God hadn't abandoned me. He was working behind the scenes. After dinner, I went to the payphone in the hallway. I put in the coins and dialed Mr. Washington's number. Washington Law Office, the secretary answered. This is Dorothy Johnson. I need to speak with Mr. Washington. It's urgent. One moment, Mrs. Johnson. I waited, my heart pounding. Miss Dot? Mr. Washington's deep voice came on the line. You all right? I heard what happened. You heard? I asked, surprised. Marcus called me. He saw Shanice putting you in a van. He real worried about you. Tears returned. Marcus, my beloved nephew. At least he had someone who cared. Mr. Washington, we need to execute the plan. Falei com voz firme. Shanice me abandonou aqui, on my birthday. She lied, said I was forgetting things. She trying to sell my house. I figured as much. Ela disse com raiva na voz. Don't you worry, Miss Dot. The clock started today. In 3 days, I'm opening that envelope and executing every word of that testament. Shanice gonna learn she can't mess with a child of God. Thank you, I whispered, relieved. You just hang tight, Miss Dot. Justice coming. And when it does, it's gonna be sweet. I hung up the phone and went back to the room. Ethel was asleep again, snoring softly. I knelt beside the bed. I had no privacy. I didn't have my prayer altar at home, but God was there too. Lord, I don't understand why this happening. Comecei a orar baixinho. But I trust you. The Bible says you work all things for the good of those who love you. So I'm asking, show me what you're doing. Give me strength to endure. And please, Lord, open Shanice's eyes before it's too late. I lay on the hard bed and stared at the cracked ceiling. 3 days. In 3 days, everything would change. Have you ever had to wait on God's timing, even when everything seemed lost? My first day at Pinewood was the longest day of my life. I woke up at 5 a.m., as I always did at home, but there was nothing to do here. I didn't have my garden to look at. I didn't have my coffee to brew. I didn't have my devotions on the porch watching the sunrise. There were only those 4 white walls, the smell of a hospital, and Ethel's snoring on the other side of the room. I grabbed my Bible and went to the communal bathroom at the end of the hall. At least there I had some privacy to pray. I sat on the toilet seat and opened to Isaiah 54:17. No weapon forged against you will prevail. Lord, I am claiming this promise today, I whispered. Whatever Shanice is planning, whatever she thinks she will get away with, I ask that you stop her. Protect what is mine. Protect what Jerome worked so hard to give me. A loud knock on the door startled me. Hurry up! Other people need to use the bathroom too, an irritated voice said from the other side. Sigh. I wasn't even allowed to pray in peace in that place. Breakfast was served at 7 o'clock sharp. Wet oatmeal, dry pie, watery orange juice. Nothing like my buttermilk pancakes with maple syrup that I used to make every Saturday. Big Rob sat next to me again, this time with a small black woman whom he introduced as Miss Pearl. Miss Pearl has been here longer than anyone else, Big Rob explained. 4 years already. 4 years and counting, said Miss Pearl in a thin but firm voice. My daughter brought me here when her husband said I was taking up too much space. I've been here ever since. I looked into Miss Pearl's eyes and saw the same pain I felt. 4 years in this place. 4 years away from her home, her life, her memories. How did you survive? Passionate, genuinely curious. Faith, dear, Miss Pearl replied with a weary smile. Faith and the Word. I've read my Bible from cover to cover 3 times since I got here. Every time I want to give up, God speaks something new to my heart. He hasn't forgotten me, and he hasn't forgotten you either. Amen, said Big Rob. We have a small prayer group that meets Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Room 118. You are welcome to join us, Ms. Dot. I felt a warmth in my chest. In the midst of all this darkness, God had placed lights, people who understood, people who still had faith even after everything. I'll be there, he promised. After breakfast, there were activities. Nurse Becky took me to the common room where a group of elderly people were sitting around a table doing children's puzzles. "This will be good for you, Mrs. Johnson," said Nurse Becky in that condescending tone. "Keep your mind sharp." Sharp mind? I had managed the household, raised a daughter alone after Jerome died, handled the finances for decades, and now he wanted me to put together a kitten puzzle as if it were therapy? But I went, because I had no choice. I sat down at the table and started putting the pieces together, but my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about my house. Had Shanice already started going through my things? Was she throwing away my photos, my memories, my history? "Has your daughter visited yet?" a voice said. Look to the side. It was a thin white man with hands trembling from Parkinson's disease. "No, sir. I arrived yesterday," he replied. "They never come," he said bitterly. "My children brought me here 2 years ago. They promised they would come every week. In 2 years, they've come 3 times. 3 times. My heart is open. Is this my future? Shanice throwing me here and forgetting I ever existed? But I have news for them," the man continued, a mischievous smile appearing on his face. "I'm 92 years old. The doctors said I had 6 months to live when I arrived here. That was 2 years ago. I'm exceeding all their expectations, and every day I live is another day they have to pay for this place. Serves them right." I laughed for the first time. There was something poetic about it. The silent revenge of simply continuing to live. The hours dragged on. Lunch was as bad as breakfast. The afternoon had more activities. Bingo. As if we were little children needing to be entertained. Finally, at 5 p.m., dinner was served. And right after, at 6 p.m., we had visiting time. I stayed in my room waiting. Part of me knew Shanice wouldn't come. But another part, that silly part that still held on to hope, lost the thought that maybe she would regret it. Maybe she would show up and apologize. Look out the window and watch cars pull into the parking lot. Families visiting, children bringing flowers, grandchildren running into their grandparents' arms. None of them were mine. "She's not coming, is she?" Ethel asked from her bed. "No, ma'am, I don't think so. They never do that, darling. They leave us here and go on with their lives as if we don't exist." The words hurt because they were true. At 7 p.m., visiting hours ended. At 8 p.m., they served a snack, dry biscuits, and warm milk. At 9 p.m., the lights went out. I lay on the hard bed listening to the children from the nursing home. Someone crying in the next room, someone gambling in the hallway, the creaking of wheelchair wheels, the beeping of heart monitors, children of people waiting to die. Was this what God wanted for me? To spend my last years in this horrible place? I picked up my Bible and opened it by the little light from the hallway coming through the door. I came across Romans 8:28. "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him." All things. Even this pain, even this abandonment. God was plotting something. I just need to trust. But trusting was difficult when every fiber of my being wanted to scream out in protest against the injustice. I closed my eyes and prayed, "Lord, 2 days, just 2 more days. Give me strength to get through this." And somewhere between prayer and pain, sleep finally came. Have you ever had to trust in God when everything around you said he had abandoned you? Second day in Pinewood. I woke up with a backache from that horrible bed and my heart even heavier than the day before. It was Thursday. Tomorrow, it would be 3 days. Tomorrow, Mr. Washington will open that envelope. But it seemed like an eternity until we got there. I did my morning routine in the communal bathroom. I went back to my room and got ready for breakfast. Today, it was cold scrambled eggs and rubbery sausage. My stomach growled just looking at it. Big Rob and Miss Pearl were already at the table waiting for me. "Good morning, Ms. Dot," replied Big Rob. "Did you sleep well?" "Actually, no. This mattress is as hard as concrete." "You get used to it," Miss Pearl said, "or your body simply stops complaining. One of the two." We laughed, but it was sad laughter. The laughter of someone who finds humor in small tragedies because the big ones are too heavy to bear. "So what's your story, Miss Dot?" Miss Pearl said, poking the eggs listlessly. "Why did your daughter actually bring you here?" I took a deep breath. Telling my story out loud makes everything seem more real, more painful. "She wants my house," I said simply. "My house is worth a good amount of money now. She was waiting for me to die so she could sell it. But I didn't die fast enough, I guess. So she found a way to get it while I'm still breathing." Miss Pearl shook her head. "The same old story, different faces, the same greed." "But she doesn't know one thing," said Big Rob with that mischievous grin. "Does she?" I looked at him in surprise. "What do you mean?" "Miss Dot, from the way you're acting, I can tell you're not defeated. You're waiting for something. You have a plan. It was frightening how well he had read me. Maybe I will, he admitted with a half smile. Maybe I know how. Then hold on tight to it, sister, Miss Pearl said, taking my hand across the table. Whatever it is, hold on tight, because God doesn't let the wicked prosper forever. Their day of reckoning is coming. We finished our coffee in comfortable silence. Then we moved on to activities. Today was arts and crafts class, coloring with colored pencils like we were kindergartners. But in the middle of the morning, something changed. Nurse Becky appeared in the craft room with a different expression. Mrs. Johnson, you have a visitor. My heart skipped a beat. Shanice? Had she come to me? Had she regretted it? I stood up quickly, almost tripping over my own feet, and followed Nurse Becky down the hall. But when we got to the visiting room, Shanice wasn't expecting it. Era Marcus, my beloved nephew, tall, with skin as dark as my brother's, kind eyes, and that smile that always warms my heart. Aunt Ponto, he said, standing up and coming to hug me tightly. I collapsed into his arms. All the tears I had held back for the past 2 days finally came. I cried like a child, molding my hands to his shirt, sobbing uncontrollably. I'll protect you, Aunt. I'll protect you, Marcus heard, holding me tightly. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that this happened to you. When we finally managed to stop crying, we sat down in the plastic chairs in the living room. Marcus held my hands as if he were afraid I would disappear. How do you know I'm here? I asked, charmingly wiping my face with the handkerchief he gave me. I saw everything, Auntie. I was passing by your house on Tuesday when I saw a Pinewood van. I saw Shanice putting you inside. I tried to stop her, but she ignored me. I was so angry, Auntie. So angry that I wanted to do something. Oh, Marcus, I sighed. You're such a good boy. Your father would be so proud of you. Mr. Washington called me yesterday, Marcus continued. He told me about the will, about the plan. Aunt Dot, I had no idea you included me in your will. I never asked for anything. I just want you to be okay. I know, darling. That's exactly why I chose you. Because you never asked. You only loved. You only cared. While Shanice only saw dollars when she looked at me, you saw your aunt, your family. Marcus wiped his eyes. Tomorrow's the day, right? 3 days? Yes. Tomorrow Mr. Washington will open that envelope, and Shanice will find out that she jumped. Can I tell you something? Marcus leaned closer. Shanice is already causing a stir at the house. I saw her yesterday with some guys from a construction company. They were measuring everything, making plans. I think she's already sold it, Auntie, or she's about to sell it. I felt anger rising. She can't sell. Not without my signature. The house is in my name. I know, but Mr. Washington said she's trying to get legal power of attorney, saying you have dementia, that you can't make decisions. She's lying to everyone, Auntie. Dementia. Shanice was spreading lies about my mental health in order to gain control of my assets. That snake, I murmured. That lying snake. But don't worry, Marcus said quickly. Mr. Washington is already taking care of it. He has medical documents proving you're completely right. He'll block any attempt to gain power of attorney. I breathed a sigh of relief. Thank God for Mr. Washington. And thank God for you, Marcus. You're my angel on this earth. Auntie, I brought you some things, Marcus said, opening the bag he had brought. Your pillow from home, the one you like, some photos, and this. He took my crocheted blanket out of the bag, the one Jerome gave me for our first wedding anniversary, blue and white, with a star pattern. I clutched the blanket to my chest and cried again. The smell still carried a hint of home, a hint of Jerome, a hint of the home Shanice had ripped from me. And there's this too, Marcus said, pulling out a small envelope. Mr. Washington sent it. He said you should read it today. Open the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a handwritten letter. Miss Dot, hang in there. Just one more day. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'll be at your house with the documents. Shanice will be there too because I sent her to sign documents. She thinks she's winning. She has no idea what's about to happen. Be strong. God is with you. Harold Washington. She smiled through her tears. Tomorrow everything would change. Marcus stayed with me for 2 hours. He told me about his job as a high school history teacher, about his new girlfriend, a girl named Angela whom I hadn't met yet, about his plans to get married next year. Normal life, beautiful life, life that went on outside while I was trapped in this place. When Marcus left, he gave me another tight hug. Tomorrow, Auntie. Tomorrow you'll be free. I went back to the room holding my quilt and my photos. I put a picture of Jerome on the bedside table. I covered the hard bed with my regular blanket from home. Ethel assured him, "This is better. Now it feels more like home." That night, I went to the prayer meeting in room 118, as Big Rob had invited me. There were 7 elderly people there, 4 black, 3 white, all with stories similar to mine, all abandoned, all hurt, but also all with faith. We sat in a circle, and each of us said a prayer. When it was my turn, I said, "Lord, tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow the truth will come out. I ask that you bring justice, that you open my daughter's eyes, and that no matter what happens, I continue to trust in you." "Amen," they all answered in unison. Big Rob closed with a powerful prayer. "Father God, we're just a bunch of old people the world threw away, but you never throw anyone away. You keep every tear. You count every pain. And you promise that you will bring justice. So we stand firm on that promise tonight. We claim victory. We believe that you will change this situation. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen." I went back to my room with a lighter heart. I lay down on my bed, now more comfortable with my blanket, and looked at Jerome's picture. "Honey, tomorrow, your wife will get justice," I whispered to the camera. "Tomorrow, Shanice will learn that you don't mess with a woman of God." I closed my eyes, and for the first time in 3 days, slept peacefully. Have you ever had a night before a big change where you had to choose between fear and faith? Friday, the third day, the day that would change everything. I woke up at 5 a.m. with my heart pounding. It wasn't fear, it was anticipation. It was that feeling of knowing that God was about to move. I did my devotions in the bathroom as usual. Today, I opened to Psalm 37:5-6. "Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act. He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, your justice like the noonday sun." Noon. Perfect. Because 10 a.m. was still mid-morning, and at 10 a.m., Mr. Washington was going to be at my house showing Shanice that she wasn't in control of anything. Breakfast went by quickly. Big Rob and Miss Pearl noticed my improvement. "Today's the day, isn't it?" Big Rob said with a knowing grin. "Yes, sir. Today is the day." "Then we'll be praying all morning," said Miss Pearl. "We'll intercede for you, for justice, for truth." At 9:45 a.m., I asked to use the phone in the hallway. Call Marcus's cell phone. "Do you know Dot? Are you there, my dear? At home?" "Yes, ma'am. I arrived 10 minutes ago. Mr. Washington is here too. We're waiting for Shanice. She should arrive any minute now." "Okay. Call me when you're done. I need to know everything." "Yes, Aunt. I promise." I turned it off and stood there in the hallway. Nurses passed by with medication. Elderly people walked slowly with walkers. Everything continues as normal. But for me, nothing has ever been normal again. Because in a few minutes, in my light blue house in Tupelo, Mississippi, my daughter was going to learn the most expensive lesson of her life. At 10:15 a.m., my heart almost stopped when the phone rang. I answered before the first ring finished. "Marcus? Aunt Dot." His voice was full of emotion. "You won't believe what just happened. Shanice lost her mind. She was screaming, crying, threatening to sue. But Mr. Washington wasn't playing around. He silenced her with all the legal documents. Aunt, you should have seen her face when she found out about the second property. She turned as white as a ghost. A mixture of joy and sadness flooded my heart. Tell me everything, darling. Every detail." As Marcus told me the story over the phone, I could visualize each moment as if I were there. Shanice arrived home at 10 hours sharp, driving her black Cadillac. Deshawn came with her. They walked in through the front door as if they owned the place. Mr. Washington was waiting in the living room, seated in my favorite armchair with his black briefcase open on the coffee table. Marcus was standing near the window, arms crossed, serious expression on his face. "What's going on here?" Shanice had asked when she saw Marcus. "What are you doing at my mother's house, Marcus?" "Your mother's house?" Marcus replied. "Funny, the last time I checked, that house is still in Miss Dorothy Mae Johnson's name. Not yours." "Not for long," Shanice replied arrogantly. "I hired lawyers to get a power of attorney. Mom clearly isn't capable of making decisions anymore." "Please sit down, Mrs. Thompson," said Mr. Washington in a calm but authoritative voice. "We need to have a conversation." Shanice looked at him suspiciously. "Who are you?" "Harold Washington, Mrs. Johnson's attorney. I have been her attorney for 23 years, and I am here today to sign some documents that her mother prepared 15 years ago. Documents that deal specifically with this exact situation." Shanice's face changed. "What situation? What documents?" Mr. Washington opened the dough and pulled out several stapled sheets. "Your mother was a very intelligent woman, Mrs. Thompson. She foresaw this. She knew that one day you might try something like this. So she prepared herself." "Prepared what?" Shanice gave a performance, but her voice had already lost some confidence. "A will with very specific clauses. One of these clauses states that if you ever have your mother committed to a nursing home against her will, with the intention of appropriating her assets, You will be immediately and completely disinherited. The silence that broke was absolute. Deshawn, who had remained silent until then, said, "This can't be right. You can't just disinherit the family like that." "Indeed, sir, in the state of Mississippi, it is absolutely possible," replied Mr. Washington, "provided the person is in full possession of their mental faculties when making the will, as was the case with Miss Dorothy. I have medical records from that time that attest to her mental capacity." Shanice began to laugh, a nervous, hysterical laugh. "Fine. So I don't get anything when she dies. But this house is still hers now, and she can't take care of it, so I still have options." "You misunderstood, Mrs. Thompson," said Mr. Washington, his voice growing harsher. "The will doesn't just take effect when she dies. It has a trigger clause. If you placed her in a nursing home, as you did Tuesday, the will would activate immediately after 3 days of documented abandonment. Today is the 3rd day." Shanice's smile vanished. "What does that mean?" she whispered. "This means that as of 10 a.m. today, you no longer have any legal claim to any property belonging to Miss Dorothy Mae Johnson. Nothing. Not this house, nor anything else." "But I'm her only daughter. I'm her closest relative. Legally, I have a right." "You had a right," Mr. Washington corrected. "But you relinquished those rights when you deliberately abandoned your mother, lied about her mental condition, and tried to steal her property. In other words, Mrs. Thompson, you threw yourself away." Shanice slumped into the nearest chair, her face pale. "This can't be happening. This can't be real." "Oh, it's very real," said Marcus, stepping forward. "And it gets better. Tell her about the second property, Mr. Washington." Shanice looked up, terror in her eyes. "Second property? What second property?" Washington pulled another document from the folder. 20 acres of land near the Tombigbee River, bequeathed by her father, Jerome Johnson, to Miss Dorothy in 1998, currently valued at $1.9 million. Shanice stopped breathing. $1.9 million, Deshawn repeated, incredulous. "And you didn't know that?" "How could she?" Mr. Washington said. "Miss Dorothy kept it a secret, as a safe deposit box, in case she ever needed it." "And guess who's going to inherit all this now?" Marcus said, barely able to hide his smile. "Not you, cousin. Me. Because Aunt Dot named me as her sole heir in the updated will." Shanice started yelling, "No, no, this is my inheritance. It's mine. She can't do this. I'll sue her. I'll fight this." "You can try," Mr. Washington said calmly. "But you'll lose. The will is ironclad. I made sure of that. And to make matters worse for you, I'm going to launch an investigation into how you gained access to Miss Dorothy's house, how you forged documents trying to obtain power of attorney, and how you fraudulently planned to sell properties that don't belong to you. You may be looking at criminal charges, Mrs. Thompson." Shanice's face turned from pale to green. "Criminal charges? Elder abuse is a crime in Mississippi, and what you did qualified perfectly." Deshawn grabbed Shanice's arm. "Honey, we need to go. We need a lawyer." But Shanice didn't move. She just sat there, staring into space, processing how her entire life had just crumbled. "Get out of this house," Marcus said in a cold voice. "Now, and don't come back. This house will be kept for Aunt Dot until the day she decides to return. Nobody touches anything. Understand?" Shanice finally spoke, tears streaming down her face. But these were not tears of remorse. They were tears of anger, of loss, of frustrated greed. "This isn't over," she said in a trembling voice. "I'll figure it out. I will." "It's over, Mrs. Thompson," interrupted Mr. Washington. "It's completely over. Now get out before I call the police." Shanice and Deshawn staggered out, slamming the door. Marcus had waited until their Cadillac was gone from the street before calling me. When Marcus finished telling the story, I was crying and laughing at the same time. "She's gone, Aunt. She's really gone. Thank you, my love. Thank you for being here. Thank you for defending me. Always, Tia Dot. Always. And Marcus? Fontesi. That land? When I really die, someday in the future that only God knows, you'll have everything. But there's a condition. Anything, Auntie. 20% goes to church, to continue the Lord's work. Pro do me harm. I promise, Aunt. With all my heart, I promise. And the rest? You use it to give Angela a beautiful wedding, to buy a nice house, to raise your children in good schools. You use it to live the life your father would have wanted for you." Marcus was crying now, too. "I love you so much, Aunt Dot. I love you too, my darling. More than you could ever imagine." I hung up the phone and stood there in the hallway. Big Rob had come to check on me and had heard everything. "Justice," he said with a huge smile. "Sweet and beautiful justice. Yes, sir. God's justice. At the right time." We spent the rest of the day celebrating. I told Miss Pearl, the prayer group, Ethel. Everyone rejoiced with me. In the afternoon, Mr. Washington called me personally. Miss Dot, I have good news and better news. The good news is that Shanice won't bother you anymore. The better news is that I'm working to get you out of Pinewood. Marcus is preparing your house. In a week, you'll be going home. Lar, the most beautiful word in the world. Thank you, Mr. Washington. Thank you for everything. Thank God, Ms. Dot, not me. I am merely an instrument of his. That night, at the prayer meeting, I testified. I told the whole story. How God had defended me. How justice had prevailed. How faith had overcome greed. And 7 elderly people, forgotten by the world, raised their hands and praised the Lord. Because if God did it for me, he could do it for them too. When was the last time you saw God deliver justice in a way that only he could? A week later, on a sunny April morning, Marcus parked in front of the Pinewood with a huge grin on his face. Ready to go home, Aunt Dot? More than ready. More than ready. I packed my few belongings into the same suitcase I had brought. I hugged Ethel, Big Rob, Miss Pearl, and every person in that prayer group who had become my temporary family. Don't forget about us, said Miss Pearl, holding my hands. Never, and you will see me again. I will come back here for visits every week. I will bring real food, real hugs, real hope. You have not been forgotten, not by me, and never by God. As Marcus led me down the hall, Nurse Becky helped me smile. Take care, Mrs. Johnson. I didn't even respond. She was part of that system that treated the elderly as a burden, as a problem, as people interact with her. The drive home took 20 minutes, but it felt like 20 seconds. When we turned onto my street, when I saw my little light blue house again, when I saw my rose bushes out front, tears streamed down my face. Welcome home, Aunt, said Marcus. Marcus had cleaned everything. He had put fresh flowers on the table. He had stocked a refrigerator. He had made my house feel like a home again. I entered slowly, touching each piece of furniture, each wall, as if reuniting with old friends. Geronimo. I felt Jerome there, his presence, his memories. Baby, I'm home. Susurre proar. I'm finally home. Marcus stayed with me that first day. He cooked my favorite dinner, fried chicken with macaroni and cheese and kale. We sat at the table where Shanice had played those roles days before and talked for hours. She tried to call me, Marcus admitted, 3 times this week. I didn't answer. She tried to call me too, I confessed. On the Pinewood phone. She said she wanted to apologize. I didn't believe her. Do you think she's truly sorry? Or just sad that she lost money? It was the right question. The question I had asked God many times. I don't know, Marcus. I really don't know. 3 days later, on a Thursday afternoon, I knocked on the door. Looked through the peephole. It was Shanice. My first instinct was not to open it, but something in the Holy Spirit touched me. That gentle voice saying, let her in. I opened the door. Shanice looked terrible. Deep dark circles under her eyes, messy hair, wrinkled clothes. I looked like I'd lost about 5 kilos, but what shocked me most was the expression in her eyes. Shame. Real shame. Mom, she began, her voice breaking. May I come in, please? I hesitated, but I opened the door wider. She entered slowly, looking around as if she were selling the house for the first time. She touched one of her grandmother's towels on the table. She touched a picture of Jerome on the wall. I can't believe what I did, she thought. I can't believe I did this to you. We stood there in the heavy silence. Why did you come, Shanice? She finally wanted to know. Because I need to tell you the truth, the whole truth. We sat down, me in my armchair, her on the sofa where she used to sit as a child watching cartoons. Deshawn left me, she began. As soon as he found out he had no inheritance, he packed his bags. Turns out he was only with me for the money, for my prospects, as he put it. Now that I have nothing, he's gone. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction, but all I felt was sadness. Sorry, dear. She looked at me in surprise. Why do you feel so sorry? I don't deserve your pity. I abandoned you, Mom. I threw you in that horrible place. I tried to steal everything from you. And you're apologizing for me? Because you're still my daughter. And a mother doesn't stop loving just because her daughter makes a mistake. Shanice broke down. She cried like I hadn't seen her cry since she was a child. She cried with her whole body. She cried for years of greed, selfishness, and losing her way. I was so jealous, she confessed between sobs. When Dad died and you stayed strong. When you had this house and I was struggling to pay rent. When you seemed happy while my life was falling apart. I wanted what you had. Not just the house, your peace, your faith, your strength. Baby, you could have asked for help. I would have had to help you. I would have had to support you. You didn't want to steal. I know. But I was so angry, so ashamed. I ruined so many things in my life, Mom, and instead of doing the work of bringing it, I wanted a shortcut. I wanted to take what you built. I took a deep breath. I looked at my broken daughter in front of me, and I felt God whisper, "Forgive her." "Shanice, look at me." She spoke with red and swollen eyes. "I forgive you." "What?" she whispered, incredulous. "I forgive you. What you did was horrible. It was cruel. It was unforgivable, capable in the eyes of the world, but I am not of the world. I am of God, and God commands me to forgive, so I forgive you." "Mom, you don't need to." "No, I have to forgive, because if I don't forgive you, how can I ask God to forgive me for my mistakes?" "But baby, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean automatic restoration. You diminished my trust, and trust has to be rebuilt, slowly, with actions, not words." Shanice nodded, wiping her face. "I understand. I don't expect you to put me back in your will. I don't expect an inheritance. I just hope that, maybe, one day, you can see me as your daughter again. You never stopped being my daughter, Shanice, even when you hurt me, even when you abandoned me. A mother's love doesn't work like that. It doesn't have an on-off switch." She came and knelt in front of my chair, resting her head in my lap as she did when she was little, and I stroked her hair, softly singing the same lullaby I used to sing years ago. "Jesus loves me, of that I know, for the Bible tells me. Little children belong to him. They are weak, but he is strong." At that moment, Shanice wasn't a 43-year-old woman who had tried to rob me. She was my little girl, lost, broken, in need of grace. And grace is what God has given me all my life. How could I deny it to my own daughter? Shanice didn't move back in with me. I didn't ask for money again. But she started showing up, once a week at first, then twice, then 3 times. She helped me in the garden. We cooked together. We went to church together. Slowly, very slowly, we began to rebuild. Marcus came to dinner every Sunday. He brought Angela to meet me, a sweet young woman, also a teacher, with a beautiful smile and a pure heart. They announced their engagement in June. And Shanice? Shanice started therapy. She began to deal with the anger, the envy, the traumas she had carried for years. One day, 6 months after that awful birthday, we were sitting on the porch drinking lemonade when she said, "Mom, I got a job, teaching at the community college, business classes. It's not much, but it's an honest job. And honest is what I need to be right now." "I'm proud of you, baby," I said, and it was true. "And Mom?" she continues. "I started volunteering at Pinewood, visiting the people there, bringing them homemade food, showing them they haven't been forgotten." Tears filled my eyes. "Oh, Shanice, this is beautiful. Big Rob asked about you. He told me to let you know that he won a race. The doctors said 6 more months, and it's been a year already. He's still going strong." I laughed through the tears. That's my great Rob. Life didn't go back to the way it was. It couldn't. Too much had broken. But in the place of the cuts, something new grew. Something stronger, more real, more honest, because that's what God does. He takes the broken pieces of our lives and makes a beautiful mosaic. Don't hide the cracks. He uses them to let the light through. On Marcus and Angela's wedding day, a year later, I was sitting in the front row of the church. Shanice was sitting next to me. And when the pastor said, "Who will give this bride away?" Shanice and I spoke together. "We will." Marcus looked at me with that beautiful smile and waved. And I thought Jerome was proud. Of his nephew who became a son. Of his daughter who found redemption. Of his wife who kept the faith. After the ceremony, at the reception, Shanice approached with something in her hands. An envelope. "Mom, this is for you. Open it." Inside was a card, and on the card, a message written in careful handwriting. "Mommy, you taught me about Jesus my whole life, but it was when you forgave me that I truly understood what grace means. You lost so much because of me, and yet you love me back to life. I'll never be able to repay you for what I did, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be the daughter you deserve. I love you infinitely. Shanice." I hugged my daughter while people danced around us. Joyful music filled the air, but between Shanice and me, there was only sacred silence, the silence of restoration, the silence of grace. "I love you too, my darling," I whispered. "I always have. I always will." And at that moment, amidst the candlelight and the sounds of the celebration, I felt Jerome's hand on my shoulder, not physically, but spiritually. He was proud. God was glorified. And me? I was finally at peace. Have you ever had to forgive the unforgivable and discovered that forgiveness liberates the forgiver more than the one who is forgiven? Today, I am 71 years old. Shanice is 46 years old. Marcus and Angela, have 2 beautiful children. And today, Tuesday, as clockwork, we had lunch together at my light blue house. Shanice never returned to the will, and that's okay. She doesn't want to. She's learned that relationships are worth more than any property. But I help her. Not with large amounts of money, with small victories, a car repair, books for her students, a special birthday present, because that's what families do. Real families. They forgive. They start over. They choose love over resentment. Big Rob died last year. At 95 years old, he exceeded all expectations. Without a funeral, his children truly cried. It seems that in recent years, after seeing him distribute his entire inheritance to the church, they finally made peace with him. He finally spent quality time with him. He finally understood what he missed all these years. Miss Pearl is still in Pinewood, but not out of neglect, by choice. She made friends there. She created a community. And every week, Shanice and I go to visit each other. We bring homemade cake. We do the ladies' manicures. We sing hymns. And every time I visit, I look at the faces of these elderly people and think, this could have been my end, rotting in a forgotten place. But God, always but God. Because when you think it's all over, God says, I'm just getting started. When you think justice will never come, God says, watch me work. When you think forgiveness is impossible, God says, with me, all things are possible. My house is still mine. The 20 acres are still mine. But more importantly, my faith is still mine. My peace is still mine. And my daughter is still mine. Because in the end, I discovered that God not only restored what was stolen, but he evolved into something better than he was before. Shanice isn't perfect right now, neither am I. We still have our difficult days, but we choose grace above all else. We choose love. We choose forgiveness. And to you who are reading this, who watched this story, who may be going through family betrayal, abandonment, pain that seems to never end, I want to tell you something. Hold on. Wait. Because God sees, he knows, and he does not forsake the righteous. I may take time. You can act while you wait. But when God moves, when justice finally arrives, it's worth every tear. It's worth every prayer. It's worth every moment of faith when all seemed lost. My story is not an exception. It's the rule. It's God's pattern. He defends the oppressed. He lifts up the fallen. He restores the broken. So if you're in a dark place right now, if someone has betrayed you, if everything seems hopeless, take a deep breath. Because God heard in my ear today, tell them I'm still in the business of turning mourning into dancing. Tell them I'm still in the business of straightening crooked paths. Tell them to trust in me. Just 3 more days. Just hold on. And for him, 3 days can feel like 3 years, or 3 weeks, or 3 hours. But when it comes, you will know, you will feel it, and you will testify, God did it. Against all odds, against all expectations, God did it. Amen and amen. There are betrayals that break hearts. There are losses that change lives. There are pains that leave a lasting mark. But there is a God who restores, who defends, whom I have never forgotten. Miss Dot didn't return from Pinewood because she protected it alone. She returned because she trusted. She returned because a loyal lawyer executed a plan. She returned because a nephew loved her when a daughter rejected him. She returned because she prayed when she could have cursed. And most importantly, he returned because a God of justice sees every tear. He counts every abandonment. And in due time, he will settle accounts with those who hurt his children. Shanice learned that greed is costly. But I also learned that grace costs more. Because true forgiveness, the kind that restores and rebuilds, only comes from a heart that knows God. And you? Have you ever experienced family betrayal? Have you ever been abandoned by those who should have protected you? Have you ever felt that justice would never come? Her story isn't over, just like Miss Dot's story isn't over in the van going to Pinewood, just like it isn't over in room 203, just like it isn't over with a brown envelope kept for 15 years. Your story continues, and God is writing an ending that will surprise you. If this story touched your heart, if you need a reminder that God still does justice, leave a like and share. Subscribe to the Grandma's Diaries channel and activate the bell because every day I bring real stories of faith, overcoming and miracles that prove that God never fails. If this story touched your heart, if you need a reminder that God still does justice, leave a like and share. Subscribe to the Grandma's Diaries channel and activate the bell because every day I bring real stories of faith, overcoming and miracles that prove that God never fails. She never abandons her children. In the comments, tell us, have you ever had to wait on God's timing for justice? What was that journey like? Your story could encourage someone today who is almost giving up. In the next story from Grandma's Diaries, an elderly lady knocks on the door of a mansion on Thanksgiving Day. When the owner opens it, she simply says, "Hello, Thomas. You don't remember me, but I remember you. I was your nanny, the one your parents fired 40 years ago, the one who, according to them, had stolen the family silverware." The man looks at her, confused. He vaguely remembers a kind woman who used to sing him to sleep when he was 5 years old. "I never stole anything, Thomas. But I saw something your parents paid me to forget. And now that they're both gone, now that I'm dying of cancer with nothing to lose, I think you deserve to know the truth about your brother Michael." Thomas always thought that his older brother had run away from home at 16, that he had chosen to abandon his family, that he was alive somewhere, living a new life. But what if Michael never left home? What if the brother Thomas mourned for 35 years never left? What if Michael is still there, buried beneath the rose garden that Thomas's mother so obsessively tended for decades? The nanny who kept the fatal secret in the next story from Grandma's Diaries. Because some secrets are buried so deep, literally, that only the death of the keeper can bring them to light. And when the truth finally comes out of the ground, it doesn't just bring bones. He brings justice to the dead and judgment to the living. Until the next story. And remember, God sees everything. God knows everything. And in due time, God reveals everything. Each story is a thread, each memory an embroidery in time.